Weird Wednesday Showdown. Let's go.
All right, guys. This is Josh from Brigandry Games, and I'm getting ready to go to the spectacular Saturday Pauper tournament that we're hosting. I got my deck ready. Let's just start off the car and get going. All right. We have arrived. Time for a quick mastication break with Breakfast of Champions, and then go in, sign up, play some awesome games. Cheers. So I guess while I'm digesting a little bit here, I'll go ahead and talk about what I'm playing today. So I've decided that I wanted to surprise everyone with a deck that I don't think they've ever seen before. So I'm going to be playing Black Sack with Carrion Feeders and Mortician Beetles as your main engines of the deck to be sacrifice a bunch of fodder creatures. So I have Link Breakers and Nested Shamblers, things that when they die they make more things that can also be sacrificed or get value off of, making both Ghast or Carrion Feeder and Mortician Beetle just absolutely huge, and just getting in there. We also, my particular variant, I'm kind of going for the old scam package, as they say in older formats. So I have more main deck Accursed Marauders and Mesmeric Fiends, because that I can combo with my Unearths and my Supernatural Stamina, Peregrine Beckner, those type of things, get in order to get more out of my opponent's hand, potentially. There is also the potential for an infinite number of counters, or infinite power for Bloodstone Vampire if I get 2 Peregrine Beckoners, which is the newest card to the deck. This big old alien bug boy. So if I can get 2 of these out on the same turn, probably with the warp ability, they can start targeting each other, and thus I can sack them both infinitely and then just have one huge hit. Out of the sideboard, I do have a Rite of Consumption, or the Black Fling. I decided to move it to the sideboard because it being a 2-of means you're not going to consistently see it very often, and it could be useful in certain matchups, but a lot of the times you can just out-aggro the opponent. So yeah, that's my game plan for today. Everything from here on out is just going to be voiceover dub, probably. I might do an outro. We'll see. Anyways.
Alright guys, let's jump right into things. So, as I said earlier, this is a recording of the spectacular Saturday Pauper tournament we did here on November 8th. This was a 3-round event. We had a total of 8 players, which is less than I was hoping for, but I'm still just really glad that we were able to get 8 people together in small town Greenville to have some good games. So, round 1 opponent here is good old David. David was playing the tried and true Mono Blue Fae, or Fairies list. A list that I know that he's watched me play on other full episodes of the Weird Wednesday Showdown. Shout out to David. This was a pretty fun match to undermine things. He definitely was not expecting Black Sack. This is part of my gambit, was to play something at this tournament that I don't think anyone had ever seen before. So he definitely caught him by surprise and had him trying to play around lines that he didn't know existed, which definitely put me in an advantage position. That's not to say that David isn't a good player. He did do his best and threw everything he had at me. You see a couple of ninjas could be potentially very scary, but it does turn out that I just had all the removal with the Accursed Marauder into Unearth Accursed Marauder scam plan, making my Mortician Beetle absolutely huge. It is also to be noted that me being an imperfect being, I wasn't catching that I should have been putting counters on the beetle for the creatures that he sacrificed as well, which is the one downside to my little bit of inexperience playing this deck. But down comes a Mesmeric Fiend. It's going to take his card draw spell, and we are going to try to just lock him in a position where he doesn't have a good way to dig his way out. As we just continue to just smash with our beetle and little fodder creatures. Big think moment into Hardcast Ninja. So we have now seen all 4 ninjas in this game 1, but it's not going to be enough as he's forced to chump away. Cheeky little play there. I actually, he blocked my Shambling Ghast, so in order to keep growing my feeder, I actually sacrificed it with Bloodthrone Vampire in order and put a -1 on the ninja, so that they would still trade, but in that I got to grow my Mortician Beetle. But yeah, at that point, it was just too much damage, too fast, out-tempoing the tempo deck. Now, going into sideboard here, I know I'm going to need removal, and big splashy plays aren't really good against the tempo control deck. So I decided to go down on some of my reanimation and some of my Peregrine Beckoners, and just went up straight removal with a very straightforward game plan here. Not exactly sure what David's choice of sideboard was. I didn't ask him, but as we'll soon see, he definitely played very well in this next upcoming round, and no spoilers, but he might go to the distance on this particular game. Alright, the shuffle up, and it looks like David decided to potentially mulligan. I know this isn't the best camera angle. Someday I will be good at setting up a camera, but that was not this day. Anyway, so there we go with a turn 1 island into Fairy Seer. Set up future draws. The other thing, from what I remember, I kept a potentially very slow grindy hand, which was probably a mistake, as he instantly goes for the Draw Engine Ninja. Looks like I tapped out for a Accursed Marauder, which isn't good when your opponent has creatures to choose from. So it was a little bit late, as I said, and now David is just drawing a bajillion cards. He's got more bodies on board than me, and he's just gonna very, very quickly lock this game up in his favor as I struggle throwing everything I can into trying to keep the board clean. There is an attempt, as you can see, with the good old Marauder into Unearth Marauder. I think that was actually just double Unearth, which is pretty strong, but as I said, he just has all the tricks. Brine Barrow into the attacking Marauder. Just gonna eat it. An attempt to sacrifice my dudes, but oh, there's the spell Sputter Sprite, countering my card draw spell. I did manage to have yet another Unearth, and so went with that. And here, there is the ninja picking up the spell Sputter Sprite. informing me that my next 1-drop spell will get countered, and I am a deck that is comprised of almost exclusively 1-drop spells. So this wasn't a very good situation for me. Desperation block into the Brine Barrow so that he keeps his ninja. Real gross there. Alright, little consideration action as I decide what I wanted to throw into that Spell Sprouter Sprite. Ended up going with the Carrion Feeder. He wouldn't have been able to counter the Bloodthrone Vampire unless he had yet another fairy to flash in, but there is very much the possibility, and just too much card draw. David got off to too fast of a start and just locked me out of that game. I ended up conceding from there. Going into game 3, I recognized my mistake of not keeping too slow of a hand and not having any removal. So that was definitely something I wanted to rectify going into the third and final game here of round 1. Made a few little minor alterations to kind of get more removal into the deck. And yeah, I'm just gonna end up blasting them. Or that's the plan anyway. Alright, here we go. Draw 7. Looks good on both sides. So Swamp into Carrion Feeder. Very scary turn 1. David, now, considering a turn 1 play, goes for the old Fairy Miscreant. 1/1 flyer, a flying man, as you may. I immediately slam aghast, sacrifice it, take out his little fairy, and swing in for some 2 damage, playing another fodder creature. This deck is, if you can get ahead of the tempo deck, like this deck is really strong versus the fairies game plan. Your creatures just trade very well and can keep pace, and you have a surprising amount of card draw. Like there are normally 6 to 7 like sacrifice draw 2s in the deck, and you also end up playing. I was playing Unearth, which is a form of like card advantage by either you could cycle it or you can go about the reanimating creatures that you need. Pretty strong. Some more little back and forth action here. He looks like I went for the I think that was a Snuff Out. I also brought in Spinning Darkness, but I don't think I had a chance to Spinning Darkness Fairy in this game, which would have been fun. You don't get to see Spinning Darkness too often, so a lot of people don't think to play around it. The Unearth, let's see, what did I get back? It's going to be counterspelled, so with a Spell Pierce, so it doesn't matter. Play out a Feeder, which is going to get turned off with that, I forget the name of it, but blue pacifism effectively also turns off activated abilities, which is relevant. I could have sacked in response just to be cheeky, but I decided just to keep the body on board in case I do find more card draw or another sacrifice outlet, such as a Cursed Marauder right here. And you also saw that I baited him with a Dark Ritual. That was 100% just a bait Dark Ritual. I had nothing to do with it. I tried it again. No response. But it was just too much action, and that will be game 1. All right, moving right along to round 2. riding high after my victory versus David, I am paired up against good old Brandon, who is on his trusty red-blue Blitz deck, playing Kiln Fiend and Delver, attempting to get some cheeky quick victories with some good old pump and evasion spells. So, going into this match, round one, as you can see, it took Brandon quite a bit of time in order to really establish himself, whereas my board kind of just exploded. He was either missing threats here or was missing that red mana he needed in order to keep things under control. You can also see that he attempted to bolt a carrion feeder with several dudes on board. Not a great plan, but probably made out of desperation, as I just sacrificed enough dudes to keep my guy alive and keep damage pushing through. He then is trying to catch up, going for the one-hit KO plan, and there's a mutagenic into double strike into unblockability via shadow, bouncing a dude, and wasn't quite enough to finish me off here. So that's quite a lot of resources as I play a Mesmeric Fiend and immediately sacrifice it, taking away his unblockability forever, since Mesmeric Fiend's ability is 2 different triggers. And then I just continue to smash, and as you can see there on the bottom, Brandon kind enough to keep track of life totals on his phone. I just proceed to beat his face in. On to game 2. And once again, I see a matchup which has some very important creatures to kill, and so I decide to go down all the Peregrine Beckoner's plan and the supernatural staminas and just go up on removal. Like, that is the name of this game. If I can remove his creatures, then all his pump spells become meaningless. And so I bring in my Marauders, I bring in my Snuff Outs, I bring in my Spinning Darknesses, and I am ready to hopefully play a control match, control game versus his all-out aggression Blitz deck. That said, I don't know why I did this to myself. I thought I could race, looking at my starting hand, and I was like, you know what, I will draw into removal. That turned into a turn 2 Kiln Fiend into, as you will soon see, one very big boy smashing in with the double strikes. If I could draw a removal spell, I could recover here and stabilize, but unfortunately I do not, so I just have to keep playing out Carrion Feeders, which don't block. The attempt to draw into removal, sacrificing one to draw some cards, didn't find it. Instead, I just have to smash, but here it comes. The Cyclops. It's gonna slow down my aggression, requiring currently too many resources in order for me to effectively take out. But as you can see there, we have he has double removal or double evasion spell in hand. I take both thanks to the Unearth and sacking of the Mesmeric Fiend, but it's just not quite going to be enough as, oh, there's Trample and Big Pump and Trample and Big Pump. And did he tap a... No, he was just keeping them up there. Okay. And to spell, swing, cannot possibly block enough to be relevant. And that will be game 2. So, going into game 3 here, I, once again, learned from my mistakes. Always got to be learning from your mistakes. And I told myself I need to keep a hand with removal, and then I open up this new hand, and I have both the Spinning Darkness and the Snuff Out in hand. So this one, I know, should be fine. And so I go ahead and lead on a Swamp into Carrion Feeder. Start being aggressive myself as I start pinking in 1 damage at a time. Another definitely important factor to this game, which kind of made my decision making a little weak, is as you can see, he only has 1 land, and if you look at what he has available, he has a ton of he just has a ton of blue cards in hand, and so being unable to cast anything meaningful here, he just scoops it up, and that will be game or match round 2. All right, and on to the finals, and as only seems fitting, it is me, Joshua Brokaw, versus everyone's favorite ginger fish, Tom Shelton. So Thomas here is decided to go ahead and play Tolarian Terror, a very powerful mono blue control deck strategy that just plays really big snakes for cheap. And this was honestly a kind of scary matchup. The Terror Delver deck, even in its unbanned form, is just an absolute beast. These games could very well go one way or the other. I do think that my mono black sack deck does have a surprisingly good matchup just because of how efficient our spells can be. It can be like, if your plan is to 1-for-1 with counter spells like that, then I can just play a different spell, and so that is something that does give me a slight advantage in this matchup. But I do have to just go full tilt, cards to the wall, and hope that I can get under his snakes, because once those snakes start coming down, if I don't have a Marauder to clear them, then it's just game over for me. But as you can see here, I am drawing all gas, no lands, which isn't a terrible place to be when you are a aggro deck. So bait out a counter spell there with a Peregrine Beckoner. Wouldn't actually have done very much other than get on me a little bit more counters on my feeder ultimately, but would have been kind of cute. And Thomas now entering desperation mode, going for the draw 3 off a Lorien revealed. So you definitely can tell he's on the ropes, and we are slamming dudes. I'm now hitting my land drops, just fully deploying my hand, and while he's tapped out, and telling him, deal with this or it's game over. And I'm sure these were definitely very grindy back and forth matches, as I hope you can tell in this 5x speed footage. There really could have been at any moment a turning point in which one player, Thomas, would be able to just slam 3 serpents down, and I then have to find a way to deal with it. As you can see, here comes 1 and 2 serpents, so not unbeatable. Oh, and there we go. The top-decked, shambling zombie boy pumping to make a bunch of squirrels with the 2 mercenaries, increasing its power. And now I can slam in with 2 potentially massive 1-drops. The way that these 2 decks kind of parallel each other is kind of fun. With the mono blue deck trying to fill its graveyard via casting instants and sorceries and milling itself in order to get there, and then the black deck trying to fill its graveyard via sacrifice in order to grow its 1-drops into massive boys. He ends up going with a double block, and with me unable to take out both, I sacrifice just enough creatures in order to eat one of them and leave behind a creature that would be able to slowly punch in. But here is the Brigandry Beckoner pumping up my beetle in order for me to get in a good hit. And that way, if he did go for trying to get a trade off, I would still have my beetle back. And so next time I drew a sacrifice effect, I'd be able to once again have a beetle to play with. And there you see I pumped the Brigandry Beckoner so that both of my creatures would be able to trade with his board. And now Thomas is back into desperation mode, trying to find anything he can to block so that he doesn't just die to my 1/1s. And unfortunately for him, there's Carrion Feeder off the top. I go for the full attack there instead of pumping up my squirrel into one big unit, going for the better more damage spread, and as you can see, it was just too much for him to handle, and so it's off to sideboarding once again. I would like to point out how I painstakingly dug through our token box here at Brigandry Games in order to find the exact tokens I need. You play a wide variety of different token producers with your sack effects, and it is always very nice to have the exact right token. Alright, so going into this next match, I still am on the side of believing that Brigandry Beckoner is just not good in this matchup, despite the fact that it did do some work in this last game. But slamming 5-drops into counterspells is not a great idea, and since we are a land-like deck, it's unlikely that I'd be able to get the combo together and do that. So I opt to take those out and bring in my mid-range creatures of Mesmeric Fiend and Accursed Marauder out of the sideboard, and along with a couple of snuff outs. Couldn't bring in the Spinning Darkness, and unfortunately, none of my graveyard hate spells that I had in sideboard were any good. Speaking of which, if y'all, for whatever reason, wanted to see what my exact deck list, I will be posting the Moxfield version of my deck list in the description down below, along with links to a lot of our social media and our TCG Player Direct, our TCG Player personal webpage. If you would like to try to pick up any of the cards that I played or any of my opponents played. We saw a lot of blue in the tournament. I guess that's a good segue. So overall thoughts of the tournament here. It was really fun, and I'm not just saying that because I'm currently winning. it was just really great seeing a lot of my favorite people come out and play my favorite game in my favorite format. So there's a little bit of bias there, and they're the cheeky snuff out on a Cryptic Servant or a Tolarian Terror, I believe. That's pretty good. But yeah, so aside from the opponents that you saw, we also had a Boggles player, a Mono Red Dredge player, being played by Ethan, one of our store employees. It was kind of sad that I did not get to face him, because his deck is always really fun to watch happen, win or lose. And then the last, let's see, then we also had Walls combo, which Thomas had to fight through in order to get to the finals. Unfortunately, that, or not unfortunate, so it's not the current meta version of Walls. It's the cool old school version of Walls that just makes a ton of infinite mana and burns you out with Valakut Invoker. Not the most efficient play anymore, but if you knew the person piloting it, it is definitely a very much more fitting, just big green stuff deck. And as we can see there, Thomas managed to squeeze out a victory in game 2. Delver tempo just too high, so make a few alterations to my deck, and we're going back in. Kind of the same story as the others, just like made a few mistakes in game 2, but gotta focus up, be on the play, get out ahead, and try to maintain momentum in my favor into this third and final match for all the Lotus Petals, which was the grand prize for this Pauper tournament. But yeah, and then the final player forgot his deck at home, and so he had to borrow something from me. And when given the options of borrowing Fairies, Burn, or Poison Storm, he decided he wanted to try Poison Storm, which, hey, I'm not gonna fault him. It is a cool deck. It is definitely something that you would want to practice with before trying at a tournament, though, as he didn't do too well. But who knows? Maybe now he'll build his own Poison Storm deck, and he can become the Poison Storm master, which is something that I definitely am not. It is definitely a deck that I just play for fun. All right, and let's finish up this commentary on the matches here. So, as you can see, I establish an early board presence, and am attempting to go for a quick aggro start, but unfortunately, it looks like he is doing everything he can to try to control my board, as I then proceed to try getting a Mesmeric Fiend in, which will be counterspelled. What does allow me to land a Bloodthrone Vampire, which, while not as good as a Carrion Feeder, is still a powerful creature in its own right. And then we attempt to we baited the Accursed Marauder into counterspell in order to free up my Snuff Out there with just enough mana to pay for the ward cost. That was a very good play on my part, if I may pat myself on the back. So once again, we have the Mesmeric Fiend coming down, bouncing Vampire in response so that I couldn't just snatch a card permanently, and into Big Snake, into yet another removal spell. And then comes down Terror. This was a real back and forth. This was a good final match. I feel it was well played by both players. Not to spoil anything quite yet, but I do want to congratulate Thomas here for playing to the best of his ability, because we are just back and forth haymaker interaction. This here is the Magic of the Gathering that I grew to love, and I was really happy to experience this here final match. But here we are. We have a Terror, we have a Delver against a board of 1/1s and a Bloodthrone Vampire. Let's see how this turns out. And best creature in the deck, Carrion Feeder, is slammed into play, which opens up multiple avenues for sacrifice. The snake ends up blocking a 1/1, which will be sacrificed to push damage through instead of grow. And there is the Sleep of the Dead, a very powerful spell. Using all the excess fuel that you need to get out your snakes, and the mill effects, Sleep of the Dead is a very repeatable escape spell that you can cast from the graveyard to tap things down and slow the game to a stall. This is a spell that I kind of wish I had played in the no ban popper Delver list. That seemed to be one thing that deck was particularly missing, was more removal and interaction. But here we are. If this is regular banlist popper, and we are slamming in with some tiny boys, chipping away at damage, trying to get those last little bits of life, and Thomas scoops it up, unable to keep up with all my aggression. And that was the Spectaular Saturday popper tournament. I would like to congratulate myself for a successful 3-0 victory. And I do plan to be doing more of this stuff in the future. So, until next time, this has been Josh at Brigandry Games. Peace.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.